This baby was surrounded by predators until she was unalived. But did the police get the right guy? The tragic case of 14-month-old Shaylyn Ammerman. Trigger warning. Shaylyn was born December 31st, 2014 in Indiana to her mother Jessica and her father Justin. Now, they stayed together for a little while until they broke up in March of 2016. Now, when they broke up, Jessica said that she kicked Justin out of her house for being too rough with their daughter, baby Shaylyn. So Justin packed his stuff and he moved in with his mom Tamara, his brother Adam, and his stepdad Danny. So on March 18, 2016, Jessica dropped her daughter Shaylyn off at her grandparents' house to spend the week with her father. Why would you send the baby to spend a week with him if you'd already kicked him out of your house for being too rough with her? So Shaylyn had spent the last few days with her father's family and everything was going good up until March 22nd. On this day, Shaylyn's Uncle Adam invited over his friend named Kyle Parker to drink liquor and watch TV. Grandma Tamara said somewhere between 8 and 10 p.m., she wrapped the baby in her favorite Winnie the Pooh blanket and then put her in her crib, which was located in the living room. So the next morning, around 8 or 9 a.m., depending on who you talk to, one of her relatives went into the living room to get her out of her crib, but she wasn't there. They searched the house and couldn't find her, and then they called the police. So the local and state police began a widespread search. They scoured all the nearby neighborhoods. They checked the rivers, lakes, woods, everywhere, looking for this baby. So Tamara and Justin told the police they had checked on baby Shaylyn several times throughout the night, and Tamara said the last time she checked on her was around 2 a.m. and baby Shaylyn was there and asleep. Adam said that he, his stepdad, and Kyle all stayed up drinking in his bedroom until Kyle left in the early morning hours, and then they went to bed too. The whole family said they did not hear anything out of the ordinary throughout the night. Then the family does an interview with the news where Grandma Tamara specifically tells a reporter that baby Shaylyn was the only thing that was taken from the home. She said the kidnapper did not take any clothes, no diapers, no milk, no jewelry, no electronics, just the baby. But that wasn't true. Turns out Shaylyn's purple passy, her favorite Winnie the Pooh blanket, and possibly her diaper bag were all missing from the home. People thought it was very weird that Tamara didn't notice her blanket was gone because that was her favorite blanket, and Tamara was the last person who had tucked her in with that blanket. So the family told the police about their friend named Kyle Parker and claimed that they barely knew him, so why was he getting drunk and staying over at your house? So the police find Kyle and they question him about what he's seen that night. Initially, Kyle told the police that he had left the Emmerman's home somewhere between 12:30 and 1:30 a.m. Kyle said when he left the Emmerman's home, Uncle Adam was still up and had stuck his head out the window to say goodbye as he was walking down the driveway. Kyle said he went to another friend's house where he'd been staying around 3:20 a.m. and sat in the garage listening to his radio until the homeowners got up and opened the door and let him in. Those friends told the police that Kyle had fresh scratches all over his arms, but Kyle told the police he got those scratches from his cat. Then Kyle starts changing his story, and what he said next shocked the police. Kyle said he was hanging out with Shaylyn's Uncle Adam in his bedroom, and Adam left the room, and when he came back, he had a toddler wrapped up in a blanket and said that he needed Kyle's help with disposing of her body. So Kyle agreed to help Adam, and they left. Kyle said that he took Adam, along with Shaylyn's body, to an access road located in Grosport, Indiana, where he would often go to drink and smoke marijuana. He described this as Shaylyn's final resting spot. He said when they got there, he watched Adam roll Shaylyn's body out of the blanket down to a slight incline until it hit a tree at the bottom of the hill. Kyle said, "You're not going to find my DNA anywhere on her body because I didn't do it." Kyle then drew the police a map of where they allegedly left Shaylyn's body so the police could go find her. So the police took that map, but they didn't find Shaylyn's body or any evidence in that area. The police then arrested Kyle on obstruction of justice and improper disposal of a corpse. And then they called his stepdad and said, "Look, you need to talk to Kyle and try to get the truth out of him so we can find out what happened to this child and where she is." So in a jailhouse phone call with his stepfather, Kyle admitted that he kidnapped, R-worded, and brutally unalived baby Shaylyn and told his stepdad where he left her body. So on March 24th, just 2 days after she disappeared, the police finally located Shaylyn's body, and she was found just 9 miles away from her family's home. Trigger warning, we're going to talk about Shaylyn's autopsy. The medical examiner specialized in pediatric cases of SA, and she said this was the worst case of measurable trauma she had ever seen throughout her entire career. The medical examiner found traumatic damage to her private area that was consistent with being R-worded by an adult male, and they also found male DNA on the inside and outside of her body. She had severe injuries to her mouth, nose, and throat that were consistent with having a hand held over her face. And her cause of death was determined as asphyxiation. Her attacker had strangled her to death after he SA'd her. The medical examiner said Shaylyn felt every single second of this violent attack and that she suffered a lot. So now the police really pushed Kyle for a confession. They said, look, we got her body, we got DNA. You may as well tell us what really happened to her that night. And Kyle now claimed that he was the only one who kidnapped and unalived Shaylyn. Kyle also confessed that he had burned Shaylyn's clothes along with her blanket and pacifier, and that he wiped his body down and Shaylyn's body down with bleach, as well as pouring it inside of her to try to get rid of any DNA evidence, though there was no evidence of bleach found anywhere on her body. Now, the police were happy that Kyle finally confessed to Shaylyn's murder, but the only problem was they had no physical evidence against him. None. They tested the DNA found on Shaylyn's body, but turns out Kyle's not a match. That DNA belongs to another unidentified male. Over 100 items were tested for Kyle's DNA, and none of them linked him to the crime. So if no bleach was found on her body or on the scene, and that's not Kyle's DNA on her body, whose DNA does that belong to? So even though they had no physical evidence, the police still charged Kyle with R-word, murder, child molest, kidnapping, aggravated battery, strangulation, obstruction of justice, and failure to report a dead body, and he would plead not guilty to all of these charges. So after Kyle's arrest, the police come back to speak with Shaylyn's family, but that's when all of their stories begin to change. Initially, Adam said he didn't see or hear anything the night Shaylyn disappeared, but later changed his story and said he did wake up hearing noises. Adam claimed sometime between 3 and 4 a.m. he heard the front door slam shut, and when he looked out the window, he saw Kyle carrying something that was wrapped in a blanket, and he thought he saw a foot sticking out, but because he was so tired, he didn't even question it. He just went back to sleep. The whole family claimed they barely knew Kyle and met him through a friend, but the police later learned that Kyle had been to their house more than 24 times. When Shaylyn was missing, her father told the police that he barely knew Kyle, but Jessica said that was a lie. When they lived together, she had come home several times and found Kyle in their house hanging out with Justin and playing with Shaylyn. The police also took the family computer and found some very concerning searches that were made on the night Shaylyn disappeared. Searches like girls being punished by strangers, girls being gagged, who's your daddy, snuff movies, girls being eaten alive, girls being hanged. The police couldn't prove who made those searches because the family claimed a lot of people had access to that computer. But we know they were the only ones in that house the night she disappeared, so it had to be some of them who watched that stuff. Then the police learned that Shaylyn's father, Justin, had 2 prior charges of criminal essay and predatory essay on a child under the age of 13. And the only reason he wasn't convicted of the second case was because the police had waited so many years before arresting him that the judge decided to dismiss the case. And when the police questioned Shaylyn's family and some of Kyle's friends, they all admitted they knew Kyle was attracted to little girls, so why the hell did they allow him around their children? And how does that topic even come up in a conversation? What the hell is going on with this family? Jessica even said that she felt like Justin and his family were lying to her about what happened that night, and that when Shaylyn disappeared, she called Justin on the phone and he didn't seem concerned or worried about Shaylyn. Every time the family did an interview with the news, they showed no emotion or concern at all. And people did not like the fact that Grandma Tamara would constantly talk about how they weren't having a party that night, rather than talking about her missing granddaughter. Justin and his brother Adam voluntarily took polygraph tests, but the results were never released to the public, but Jessica claims that Justin failed his polygraph test. And we don't even know if the men in her family were ever even tested to see if they were a match to that DNA because the police have never released that. The police said they were still investigating and would probably make more arrests, but that would never happen. Kyle was the only one who was ever charged. The prosecutor knew they had more evidence against the family than him, so they had to make a tough decision, either risk going to trial and him walking free, or give him a plea deal. So the prosecution had no way around it. They offered Kyle a plea deal, 60 years in prison with the possibility of parole. Kyle took the plea deal, but when he's released, he won't have to register as a SMEGS offender. The judge was not happy with this plea deal either, but they knew it was the only way to put Kyle behind bars. The public was outraged with Kyle's plea deal and this police investigation, and they feel like someone else was involved in Shaylyn's murder. I think there's so much more to this story than what's being told. I'm not saying Kyle is innocent. I'm saying someone else was involved and that unknown DNA belongs to them. He said he used bleach on and in her body to get rid of his DNA, but no bleach or his DNA was found. But another male's DNA was found on her body, so that tells me either she was being essayed before he kidnapped her, or she was essayed by an unknown person during the kidnapping. To this day, police have not identified the male DNA that was found on Shaylyn's body, and it makes you wonder, who does it belong to? And if Kyle did set someone up, who did he get the male DNA from, and why did they only find theirs and not his? Now let's take a moment to remember 14-month-old Shaylyn. Shaylyn was just learning how to talk, and she had the cutest little voice. She loved listening to music, watching cartoons, and playing with her favorite toys. Her mom said she loved music, and every time you cut the radio on, she would start singing and dancing to the song. She loved to give hugs and kisses. She was such a happy baby who was always smiling. Rest in peace, Shaylyn.